Hello and welcome back. Welcome back. Where have you been? Where have you been? Okay, nice to see you. To see you nice. Some people may have heard of that. Some people may not. Okay, now get comfy. Get settled down. Turn it up. Turn up the volume a little bit. All right, so you might see some changes to where I'm staying at the moment. I've got a new lamp. It's normally over on the other side of the room, but I put it over this side because of where the camera is today, and I got a bit more light from the window. Anyway, good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for coming along. Tell your friends. Tell your friends. Okay, so today we're going to talk about charities. All right, so I have made some notes. As always, I always say this to everybody every time. I say the same thing again and again and again. All right, so I have made some notes and I want to share those with you and some pictures and things like that. But charities, you know what charity is? It's like where you buy something that's secondhand from a charity shop, or you give money to charity and get nothing in return. It is like a charitable thing to do. So the word charity comes from to give without expecting reciprocation, without expecting anything in return. All right. So to give is to be charitable. All right. But why do we give? Why do we give? Is it because our governments don't provide enough of the essentials? I don't know. In the UK, it seems that a lot of people like to give. A lot of people like to have that sense of helping somebody else. Now, I've made a list of like the top 5 and some other, a couple of extras that are worth mentioning. So I'd like to go through that and talk to you about that a little bit. But I'll share my screen with you so you can see what's happening a bit more. So if you see me looking over, it's because I'm looking at the screen and I want to share it with you and talk a little bit. So I'll be up in the corner. All right, okay. Charities. All right, let's have a look. Okay. Bear with me one moment. Let me just click that button there. There we go. Now I'm just up in the top corner. Excellent. Right, okay. So I've already mentioned that. It is unscripted and unedited, all right? So bear with me where I have a few... I'm becoming like a radio DJ, and I'm having to be more succinct and a little bit more on cue and a little bit more professional and a bit quicker. We're learning and memorizing where everything is. But I'm putting it together for you to make it easier for you to listen to natural, native English, British English conversation. All right. So like I said, today we're talking about charities. And there is a few notes. So you might want to read along. You might just want to listen. All right. So the top 5 and a couple of extras I chucked on. So the National Trust. Now, personally, I didn't like the National Trust because they allowed fox hunting, with all those people on horses, the aristocracy, those wealthy to do with the red jackets and the black helmets. They would run on horses across lots and lots of fields with a big pack of dogs and hunt down a fox just for fun. All right, so I didn't like the National Trust for a very long time. But I'm led to believe now, and I have checked, that they do not allow it on their land anymore. And actually that practice is prohibited. It's against the law in the UK. Yet it does still happen, all right? It happens a lot, especially on Boxing Day and Christmas Day. But there's not enough police to stop this. But there is some charities called the Hunt Saboteurs. Saboteur, to sabotage, to stop, to foil and prevent a plan or something happening. So the Hunt Saboteurs are a charity to stop the hunting of foxes. There are alternatives like hunting a human that runs across the fields that has a head start and things like that. So anyway, that's another story. Right, the National Trust. They protect and look after a lot of land and monuments and houses and landmarks. Really big organization. Now, I don't want to get into too much detail, but some people are very anti-national trust because they say that they've acquired the land, they've been given the land, or the owner has died and they bequeathed, given after death, the land for everybody to enjoy. But then, although the National Trust is a charity, it's kind of like a middle class charity. All right? If you're poor, you still got to pay to get in or to join the membership and pay for the car park and things like that. So it is a bit of a bone of contention. Bone of contention. All right? So that means a little bit of contention, a bit of disagreement between two parties. All right, bone of contention. The price is high to become a member of the National Trust. Only really for the those that have the money. All right, okay. So you'll see this sign a lot of places in the UK around forests or big houses. The National Trust. So that logo is like an oak leaf, a green oak leaf. All right. Next one then would be cancer research. All right. So they have a lot of shops that are gifted and bequeathed clothing and bric-a-brac. Now, bric-a-brac, literally bric-a-brac, is a term meaning sort of odds and ends. I know that's another phrasal verb. Is another term for miscellaneous, unknown things or things that fall into multiple brackets, multiple areas, you know. So not just apparel, which is clothing. So not just clothing and belts and accessories and sundries and paraphernalia, but also other bits and pieces like trinkets, collectible items, you know, such as like little things to go on your shelf, ornaments and things like that. They also sell puzzles and games and pictures and all these other sorts of bric-a-brac things. So cancer research, there you go, a very good charity. A lot of people like to donate their clothes and their bric-a-brac and their stuff that's too good to go to the tip or too good to go to the dump. You know, they'll be buried in the ground. It's too good and too nice. Somebody could make good use of it. It's, you know, good quality things. Cancer research. So like I put in their notes there, that they're primarily about fundraising to help support searching for help reduce cancer and all the stuff that goes along with that. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's a big charity. All right, okay. The next one would be the British Red Cross. All right, it's been around for a long, long time. I think they were on the battlefield and things like that. It's kind of like another hospital service. Now, you may see them with sporting activities because our hospital service is under a lot of pressure, not just by the taxpayer to perform well, but also under the financial restrictions of the government. Things like the Red Cross, companies like the Red Cross, charities, should I say, like the Red Cross, you might see at sporting activities. So if there's like motocross racing or horse racing or some kind of activity for adventure and fun, often there'll be a branch of the Red Cross. So they may have their own ambulance and their own staff there, you know, that are like ambulance staff, maybe even a doctor or a nurse, you know. So if you have a broken bone or a concussion, they could help you with that on site, you know, where the activity is happening. So I think they get a donation. I don't know what they charge or whatever, but if you've got a big sporting activity, there's often a charity like the Red Cross, and I'll get onto the other one in a moment. But the Red Cross has been around for a long time. I think it said there support for crisis both in UK and internationally. There you go. and social care services and things like that, and refugees. So they do a lot of good work, and also in a lot of countries. The other one I've mentioned there is St. John's Ambulance. Now, if you're in a work setting, there's often a requirement by the government that if you have more than 5 employees, then you should have somebody that is first aid trained. Now, what does first aid trained mean? It varies. First aid at work might be that you've got a badge to say that you know when to call an ambulance. You know how to perform CPR. CPR. Now, I think, don't quote me, I think cardio CPR. Cardio respiratory cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. I think I was right. If you know better and I've got it wrong, let me know in the comments. Let me know. Okay, so if you're in work with more than 5 employees, I think the government state that you should have somebody that is first aid trained. Maybe you could be a first aider at work and maybe get a little badge, maybe you get a bit extra money, and you go off on courses with the Red Cross or the St. John's Ambulance, which would teach you CPR. It would teach you like how to deal with burns and breaks and abrasions and sprinters? No. Sprained ankles. All right. Sprain is when you twist an ankle or you hurt your ankle and it's not broken, but it's still very, very sore. We call it sprained. You sprained an ankle, sprained your wrist. All right. So these people are at work, are able to help you whilst waiting for the ambulance. Or if it's not too serious, maybe you hurt yourself at work, a first aider at work comes, helps bandage you up or calms you down, makes you feel relaxed and calm and safe. And then they get you in the car and they take you to the hospital. Maybe A&E. All right. In the UK, we have A&E, accident and emergency. Whereas in other countries, they have different acronyms. I think like the US, for example, they have a different one altogether. What do they call it in the US? I can't remember. If you know, let me know. Okay, so St. John's Ambulance and British Red Cross offer training for employees in at work. So that's a good. Sometimes that's a good gig. All right, good gig to have. Now, when I say a good gig, I mean a good thing to volunteer for and become part of in your workplace, because it makes you a little bit more sociable. It makes you more kind of like necessary as an employee. And also, sometimes, wink, wink, it gives you the opportunity to get out of work. Especially if you're having a hard day, you might have to get out of work and check the first aid kits or go on another course or something like that and still get paid. So that's often a good thing to get into at work. All right, St. John's Ambulance, British Red Cross, and I think there's a couple others. Okay, right. Oh, and if you're like me, sometimes you work in transport industry, we have a thing called CPC. Certificate of Professional Competence, and that means that you do courses every year to keep your professionalism and to keep you up to date with new laws and regulations and things like that. You got to have a set amount of hours. I think it's 7 hours a year. So one of the things you can do on that is first aid and CPC. It's first aid. By St. John's or British Red Cross. That's one course you can do on your CPC to stay relevant and to stay up to date with your driving qualifications. So I'm able to drive a bus, a full-size coach. I can drive lorry. I can even drive a crane. There you go. A bit more about me. I can drive lots of vehicles. Okay, British Red Cross. There we go. Oxfam. Okay, so Oxfam has been around for a long, long time. Social injustice all around the world. For donations and fundraising activities and shops. There we go. Alleviate poverty. Okay, I didn't put a picture of an Oxfam shop. Oh, I should have put a picture for an Oxfam shop. Anyway, it's green and it's got an OX. Now, my friend works in an Oxfam shop and they have some really, really good clothes, like name brands. Yes, they're secondhand. They're, pre-loved, if you will. But they're normally really good quality, like names that I haven't heard, like proper high quality names. They have good stuff in there. Okay. Oxfam. The Royal British Legion. Now, I don't want to upset anybody, but my granddad, who's 96, one of his videos, I've got an interview with him. One of his videos is on the other site. Now, he's not happy with the British Red Cross. He says, and I think he was like 14 at the end of the war, so he was a bit too young to be in the Second World War, I think he said. But he's really not happy with the Royal British Legion. He says because they don't help in the more recent wars. They don't recognise the more recent wars and helping other soldiers. So anyway, he's got his beef with them, so to speak. So that's interesting. Somebody that's that old not liking the British Red Cross. And that's a charity where it is almost compelled. You're almost compelled to buy a poppy in the UK. It is everywhere. Every business, every shop, every organisation displays a big poppy or a bunch of poppies or selling poppies. Now if the country was to be behind one charity, it would be the British Red Cross. The Royal British Legion. I only said that because it's red. So the Royal British Legion, interesting. Often you'll have Royal British Legion as like social clubs, so people can meet there, and often it would be, and I'm pretty sure the ones I've always been have always been a social club, but they were a bar. So there might be a function room upstairs where there might be a I don't know, discos or people rent it out for their parties, and weddings. But it's always been a bar. Like a pub, old men in there drinking, chatting, and, maybe playing dominoes and things like that. And then maybe a function room upstairs. Cheap alcohol as well. I think it's like subsidized, meaning it is part paid for. Some of it is part paid for. Now, subsidized is great when you're in a work environment and the canteen is subsidized. The food is subsidized. So, it's always in a bar, or not in a bar. It has a bar within it. It's a social club with a bar inside it. Very similar to the conservative club. Often you'll go to a conservative club. Will actually be a bar, a pub, a big room where people are drinking alcohol. So I don't know how that became a thing. Like you'd think it's just about politics, but it's not. It's a drinking place for older people. How unusual, how bizarre, how British. All right, okay. Apologies for the mouse moving and raising up the other things, other tabs underneath. All right, so the poppy and the Royal British Legion. There we go. Okay. Now, the one my mum, rest her soul, used to love was the Royal National Lifeboat Institute. Again, that's been around for a long, long time. Often you can go in and see the lifeboats and the life jackets. Often they're at the beaches. Often when there's a big beach town in the UK, there'll be like a slipway, which is like a slipway is like a long like driveway where they're able to pull the boat up out of the sea. And often they'll be connected to a tractor or a winch, something like that, to pull the boat up out of the sea. And that's where also it is launched. That's the word they use. Launched from. Not a rocket, but down into the water. The Royal National Lifeboat launches down into the sea. Now, a lot of people, especially older people, and my mum, used to love getting either a tea towel, which is like a very thin towel for drying up the dishes, with RNLI on it, or whatever their image is of that time, to keep promoting, or a fridge magnet. Now, many people, including myself, buy fridge magnets. I don't know why. Maybe it's a British thing. But even in Asia, I was able to buy fridge magnets, so you can bring them back. Again, another silly thing in it that we British people do. I don't know if it's the same in Australia. Australia is very similar to English and to England in many ways. But I don't think it's quite so popular in America and Canada. I don't think it's quite as big a thing there. So yeah, fridge magnets. All right, Royal National Lifeboat Institute, RNLI, Royal National Lifeboat Institute. Okay, back in 1824. Wow, quite a long time. Okay, yeah, and there we go. There's a picture, if you're able to see the screen, there's a picture of a big lifeboat. Often is much smaller lifeboat, like a dinghy, an inflatable dinghy with a big, powerful engine on the back, and they come out. And I have to say, and here's a story about me now. When I was a young lad, I was in my, early 20s, me and some friends, we were encouraged by my other friend, who was very, very persuasive to rent a boat. And he'd done this a few times, and he beached up on a quiet part of the beach somewhere, maybe a hidden cove around the corner. So we'd hire a boat, pay, I don't know, whatever it was, like 20 or 30 quid, and then maybe another 50 quid. Quid is another word for pounds. It's slang for pounds. So another 50 pounds, another 50 quid for a deposit. We'd take this boat out, and we'd go across maybe towards Exmouth or somewhere up the River Tean estuary in the southwest. And we'd go up and down and hit the waves and mess about and be silly. And there'd be maybe me. Well, this time there was me, my friend, another lad, and a couple of our girlfriends. I think that was all there was. And we had some rucksacks and some bags. And we went out into a secret hidden little cove, and we had a barbecue and stuff like that, and some music, and I had a bit of fun. And this particular time, I think a wave had come up and it shoved the boat sideways. And between the three of us, between the five of us, if there was five, I don't know if there was six, we could not move the boat back out. And I think that the tide had subsided a little as well. The tide was on, so the boat was stranded. And in which case we were stranded. Now, my friend and I, and my other friend, we're all, big strapping lads. We couldn't get the boat out, but the two of them said, well, tell you what, you stay here and we'll go and see if we can get the owner of the boat to give us a tow back out. So I thought, oh, all right, and I'll stay with the girls, it's not a bad idea. I'll stay with the girls and the food and, our rucksacks. And they sort of clambered up. Clambered up is like a way of climbing, but not professional. It's just scrambling up the rocks, up the cliff face. It wasn't too dangerous. We were quite courageous young men. Anyway, so they clambered up the rocks and they walked all the way around the shore, and I think they hitchhiked the lift, and basically they got back to where they rented the boat. So we were waiting, and this was before the internet and before everybody had mobile phones, really. So they got back, and we were waiting and waiting and waiting. And I don't know, 3 hours went by at this point. And we thought, oh, God, we're going to have to go up the rocks as well. And we had rucksacks and the girls. And so, we were waiting. And then eventually, 4 hours, maybe 3 hours. It seemed like ages. A blimmin' lifeboat come hurrying across, We're like, oh, gosh, is that for us? Is that for us? Oh, no, are we in trouble? What? Oh, no, are we going to get in trouble? Are we going to get towed off? Anyway, this lifeboat comes up, but, and there's a big rubber dinghy with a boat on and 5 blokes or something, or four big blokes with all the vest and all the gear on and everything. And they come over and they're I don't know, maybe they're 30 or 40 feet out of the beach, still in the sea. And come over. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go out there. All my stuff, all our stuff will get wet and lost. No, leave your stuff. Come out to us. Come out, swim out and get on the boat. We'll get you away. I'm like, I'm not bothered. I'm not stranded. I'm okay. I can climb up the rocks. And they got quite cross. I'm like, no, you got to come out here. You got to get on the boat. Anyway, so we left our stuff. We clambered onto the boat. Well, we sort of swam out and then got dragged onto the boat and then given a blanket because obviously we were soaking wet by this point. And then we were taken back up and we were winched. There was a crowd of people. Oh my goodness, I was so embarrassed, right? A big strapping lad on this boat with a crowd of people being like not launched but brought back up the slipway, back up into the inside, and then I got given a hot chocolate and stuff like that. And you're right, you're right. I mean, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I can swim. I could have got out. Why? And you silly boys, you shouldn't have done that with the boat. So we got a bit of a telling off, and then we were like, but what about our stuff? I thought somebody was gonna. I'm like, no, forget that. I'm like, oh. Anyway, I think my friend went back the next day because it was like quite late, dusk at this point. And I think he went back there a couple of days later to see what stuff was left because I think other people were able to access that beach. And the owner of the boat come out and he dragged his boat back and got into a bit of an argument with my friend. But anyway, so yes, that was my story of the RNLI and my embarrassment. Oh, I never live it down. Anyway, RNLI, a great charity. And the British people really, really love the RNLI. We really love it. I don't know why. It's a really solid charity that saves lives. Maybe because it's just we're an island and everything we've ever done is going out of sea, off this island. And we know that we've got a treacherous shoreline, hence why we have all these lighthouses. And so maybe that's why we're beloved. We beloved the Royal National Lifeboat Institute. Interesting. Okay, so if you ever come to the UK and you go to the beach, you'll probably see an RNLI boat or even a gift shop. All right, not cheap gifts, they're a bit expensive. Again, more aimed towards the middle class. Well, where else would you want to get your money? All right, okay, moving on. Right, let's go back. Where are we? Right, okay. NSPCC. Now this one's a bit more close to my heart. I've done a couple of half marathons, and I did one for charity for the NSPCC. I find it now for some reason I connect with it. I don't know why. Maybe because I don't know why. Maybe because it's children, and I had a bit of a rough upbringing, and I kind of met a lot of other children that had a rough upbringing. Now, don't get me wrong, my mum was great. She was the most loving woman ever, and I really, really miss my mum. It's been 2 years now, and I really, really miss my mum. She was the best woman ever, Unfortunately, she was never lucky enough until her last couple of years to really find a good, solid man that provided for her and us as a family. So we had a turbulent childhood up and down of mother's different attempts at finding love and stability that was not there for us. Anyway, so yeah, hence why I don't mind moving around. NSPCC, National Society of Protection for Cruelty, National Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Again, 1884. Probably some guy from London, I suspect. Yeah, Reverend Benjamin Walt from London. There we go. And then in 1986, they made Childline, a line that you could ring up and ask for help and counselling and supporting. Now their logo is normally green. I think, I got a picture of it. And they also helped form a lot of policies and procedures within the law and the government as years went on. Now, I've worked with children's services. Maybe that's why as well. I've worked with children's services. I've worked within what we call safeguarding. Now, that's a term that we use in the UK to I don't know, protect those that are vulnerable. So we safeguard adults and we safeguard children, and we also safeguard other vulnerable groups. So like if you're elderly, or if you have learning disabilities, or if you're very young, and a few other groups as well. All right, safeguarding is a term meant where agencies such as like the police, the ambulance, even like teachers, social workers, hospital staff and doctors. They're all, you know, part of these big government organizations, are interconnected when it means to be looking out for and being aware of these vulnerable people, and to see and keep an awareness of if these young people may be being abused, maybe financially abused, emotionally abused, physically abused. So these people are trained to spot and to be aware of what to see if if a vulnerable person is being taken advantage of or being abused, shall we say. Okay, so safeguarding is this net. Apparently they say nobody falls through the net. You know, allegedly nobody gets left behind and hurt and abused. Because we've had some really big cases in the past of where there's been really bad child abuse or really bad abuse of people of learning disabilities, and it's made the headline news, and these care homes have been shut down, and there's been really big headlines about how bad the system is broken, and this person's been really abused, and this is the bad thing that happened, and that person's now gone to prison. It's a really big, I don't want to say scandal, but it's a really big concern in the UK that there are occasionally people that fall through the net, that get missed by the system of safeguarding, where all these professional individuals, these professional agencies are supposed to keep a lookout and help one another and connect. So for example, a nurse could say that, oh, this person has got bruises where they shouldn't have bruises. It looks like handprints. And that nurse can speak to the social services. And the social services could speak to somebody in childcare. And so childcare could speak to somebody that's in teaching. So all these agencies can come together and have private conversations where the identity maybe or the worry of not putting that person at more risk is safe. All right, safeguarding meetings. Now, I've been in safeguarding meetings, and they're quite upsetting. Especially when maybe somebody still needs to be around a person that may have abused them, but they still want that person in their life, and so things get put in place to try and minimize any, especially if they're an adult, to minimize any further abuse. Again, very upsetting, difficult situations. All right, so that's probably why I feel connected to the NSPCC. Okay, moving on. All right, Age UK. That's the next one. Age UK. They do a lot of work for the elderly. You can rent and borrow like Zimmer frames and wheelchairs and things like that, where it can help you be a little bit more aid your mobility and help you stay a bit more outgoing and a little bit more, sociable. All right, so they do a lot as well for people. They've grown and changed as an organization over the years, but again, are still a very good charity. All right, so that's Age UK. Again, it's mostly shops, and like I say, you can borrow and rent things. I don't know where. I think it's all online these days. You know, if you wanted to borrow a wheelchair, for example, or even just crutches. All right, so let's get back out of this a minute. Let's go back to my pretty face in full screen. All right. I think I'll do that. So, why do we have charities? Why do we like these charities so much? What's the purpose of these charities? Now, obviously, I said I did a little bit of research, and there's stuff about the psych. I know that in Asia, for example, where there is a lot more poverty in some countries, people still give to those that they can see are less fortunate. So it's not just a Western phenomenon. it happens all over the world. We give to those that are less fortunate. But why? Why do we do it? You know, keeping hold of the money we have in this day and age, you know, where everything is so expensive, and trying to keep hold of money can be quite difficult with you know, with everything, and having to work hard ourselves. So I looked at the psychology of it, and there are a few different factors that I'm going to cover now, but also kind of like on a selfish level, is there a part there? Yeah, so all right, let's look into that. So it says there's a sense of purpose for giving charity. So our own identity, it gives us purpose. Well, you know, I give to charity, I help everybody else. It sort of makes you feel worthy and self-worth. Also, they say about increased well-being. I feel good today. I've given money. I've helped this person. Now, what I generally do is I generally go up to the person and say, look, is there any food or drink I can buy you? I'm going into the shop. And often they'll say, yeah, can you just get me a sandwich and a bottle of water? Now, I don't mind that. That's easy. Something else that somebody used to do, a friend of mine, on their app, I think it's Greg's. Every time they go on their app and they bought so many things, they get given a free pastry. And I think it's also the same for Lidl's. If you know, like loyalty, the company gives you something back. So if you get like a free coffee or a free donut, something like that, you know, you go outside and you see if anybody who's interested in your free donut. And then you ask them what selection, and, you know, have a bit of a conversation and whatever. Yeah, so increased well-being makes you feel good, yada, yada, yada. Social connection. Now, that's an interesting one, how we feel socially connected, and we don't want that individual to feel isolated and part of our community. So, like I said, one of the other things I do sometimes is buy a big issue, which is a magazine. I've covered it in another video. Check it out. That makes the person feel part of our community, part of... Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Just that you know, we're helping other people, those that are less fortunate. Yeah, part of the community. It's a difficult one to express how you feel about your community and about the people that are trying to keep a lookout and help for everybody. You know, like this inclusion feeling. Okay. Also, it says about a positive impact on our own mental health. It's supposed to make us feel good mentally. Well, that's kind of encapsulated with all the rest of it. Now, what about this one? This one's different. What about a sense of control of our own money, our own finances? That's very different. All right, so not all cases, but a lot of cases, you can select where you spend your money. If you want to buy some clothes, you can go, I don't want to go to that shop, I don't want to go to that shop, but I'll go to this shop. I like this shop. You know? You can do the same with your mobile phone. I don't like that mobile phone company, I don't like that mobile phone company, but I do like this one and this one. So you can choose where you spend your money. But a lot of time, there's things like the government that you can't get away from, that you have to pay your money, say for road taxes. And you think, well, the roads are terrible, especially in my area, this road's terrible, that road's terrible, but you still have to pay the money, and you can't get away from that. You know, you might think that you don't like the services that you get. You know, maybe it's like the your bin collection. You might say, oh, it's terrible. They refused to take my bin, because my recycle bin, because it was contaminated with the wrong kind of recycling. And I know that's very first world problems, you know, moaning about our recycling. But sometimes it can get heated and it can get frustrated that you're stuck with your rubbish then for another maybe 2 weeks. And that can have a big impact on your family life. And then maybe arguments happen, all right? Ensue mean to then happen. You know, an argument ensued, happened after something else. So if you're not happy with your local council, for example, your local government, there's not a lot you can do about it. You can't say, well, I want a different one. Well, you can move to another county. You can move to another country even, if you don't like your country. But again, that brings up a whole load of other issues. Most of the time, it's better to stay in your own country because of your own culture and your own systems, and that you're very familiar with, in your family and your ties and your roots, and try to fix it from the inside. All right, now that's very easy for me to say, but it's not very easy to do. There are some countries that are going through some hellish times right now. War, famine, and a whole load of bureaucracy and a whole load of troubles. Now, those countries, I don't know what to say. It is an awful time. And I can only give empathy and sympathy and love for you guys in those troubled countries. I really do. And if I had my way, I'd welcome everybody to come to the UK. Why not? We're all immigrants in the UK anyway. Same with America, same with Australia. Nobody actually ever owns that land in real life. You don't actually own the land. You might think that you own part of the land, but the land is still going to be there when you die. All this thing with borders and control from governments is very frustrating and upsetting. You know, normally people would go where there's work, and you just move to where there's work because that's what pays. That's what helps keep you going and help keep your family alive. So it's a difficult situation. I agree. All right, let's get back on topic. So why do we like charities? What's all these good things? And the last thing I've got to say is it the oxytocin? The oxytocin, the hormone, the feel-good hormone that you get when you give to somebody, when you're being generous. That same hormone you get from when you have a hug. When you hugged your loved one. Hugged your loved one? Love your hug one. Love your hug one? When you hug your loved one, or you hug a dog, you pet a dog, or cat. That really good feel-good hormone, oxytocin. Is that the real reason that we're doing this? We're generous? Is it for selfish reasons? Altruism, empathy, all these feelings. Is it only for selfish reasons of that serotonin, that high? Those hormones that make you feel really good. Are we doing it for those reasons only? Interesting. I mean, how could you prove not? How could you prove one way or the other? Difficult, huh? Difficult. Anyway, we seem to want to give a lot to charity in our own way, I suppose. It's a very personal thing. Often we get things through our letterbox, like a plastic bag, and inside is a big bin bag, in the colour of the charity, asking you to give clothes or bric-a-brac and things like that. So they want you to put it in the bag, and they'll come and collect it. So instead of you taking stuff to the charity shop, they'll come to you and pick it up. They'll drive around in a van and pick it up if you leave it outside in their coloured bin bag. So charities have changed a lot, and we could go all the way back to like Band-Aid and Live Aid with Bob Geldof and big charitable events where they have big concerts. Now, also going back in our history, we used to have like a telethon. You'd ring up for Red Nose Day, which is a big comedy effort that goes over a weekend, I think. And then you'd ring up and, I pledge £50 to the charity. And then they would take your details and take the money off your debit card. And there'd be like lots of famous celebrities getting involved that would help. And there would be lots of comedy sketches with all the best and famous and well-known and less famous comedians to get you to ring up and give money. So that was obviously much more back in the 80s. now there's a lot of stuff going on online. There's a lot of altruistic work now because that's very, very in vogue to be altruistic and humble and giving and things like that. So what's the future for charity? Will you be getting a charitable app on your phone? Will you be getting stars underneath your name as if you brand yourself? Maybe like in China where you're a good citizen. Look, it says on my phone, I'm a good citizen. I crossed the road correctly. I helped somebody cross the road. I gave this much to charity. I did this. Where does it end? Like I said, it's a very personal thing, charity, and giving money to charity. Now, the reason I'm doing this podcast today about charity is because my mum was very charitable a person, even though she was very humble herself and most of her life very poor. Now, I mean that seriously. She was very poor. We were brought up in a council house for many, many years, a local authority housing. And my brother and my sister and I were very humble people. So we believe and we feel that many of the most humble experiences we had were from other people that had no money or very, very little money, eating junk food, from the cheapest supermarket, of just living on beans and toast and charitable donations and canned or tinned meat from Romania. This is back in the 80s. We were having tinned meat from Romania. We were that poor in my household, and yeah, just asking to be able to have some bread and butter. Asking our parents, can we have some bread? We were quite poor back in the 80s. Even into the 90s and 2000s, we didn't have a lot of money, but I started working for myself, and even then, food and money didn't really come that easy. But there we go. So my mum gave me a good sense of humility and to be charitable and to connect with everybody. My mum spent a lot of her career as a cleaner. Or what do they call it in the United States? I think they call it an orderly. And when she wasn't cleaning, she worked in care. Or she cleaned whilst working in care. Now, again, that's called an orderly. Somebody that helps people in the care home about their daily chores and their daily tasks. So my mum was a very humble person. She really instilled that in me. And so that is a big part of who I am. And I don't give enough. I feel guilty that I'm not giving enough. I mean, I don't have a lot myself. I don't have my own house or my own apartment. I do now have a camper van, which I think I'll be living in the future. But that's another story. Money is not that much of an issue to me. I don't care about it that much. But I do want to grow and give back. Hence why I have the website. I want to give back to help those people that want to learn English, that can help them help themselves, all right? So it's not about just giving so people think, oh, well, people just give me stuff. I don't have to do anything, all right? I understand the mindset of helping people help themselves. That's why I like the big issue. That's why I like other charitable organizations that help people get into work or start their own companies. There's a big organization that helps, I think it's entrepreneurs that help other people start up businesses and things like that. All right. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. Tell me about how you feel about charity. Do you give to charity? Are you from humble beginnings? Let me know. Let's start this conversation. And take a little look at my website. Maybe we can share some resources, some learning information that we can give to everybody else that comes to the website. All right, so make a note down below in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and your feelings about it. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care and bye-bye for now.